Hey guys, so I didn't know if I wanted to do a why the pros play because honestly, very few pros are actually doing this, or if I simply wanted to break down Team Octalysis and why they are getting away with playing main tank Xul. So Xul is a specialist known for being one of the better minion clearing heroes in the game, as every time that he clears a set of minions, he summons a bunch of skeletons, and he's just a very powerful hero. So he didn't really see a lot of pro play in a long time because most pros have a good time at, I guess, drafting enough wave clear where they don't need someone who does just that amount of wave clear. So I wanted to kind of show a little bit about why the pros are playing Xul right now, and particularly why Octalysis is playing Xul. So I don't know if this is going to be a why the pros play or just a breakdown of Xul main tank. Either way, these are pro teams. This is Team Octalysis versus Team Freedom. They're essentially tied for third and fourth place right now in terms of North America HGC. And Team Octalysis has been known lately for drafting crazy out of the meta stuff, like main tank Xul. So the first thing that you need to know about main tank Xul is he doesn't have a lot of power in the early game. His damage is very AoE based, he can lower the attack speed of the enemies, and he's got a decent root, but in general, his power comes from later talents. Level 4, level 7, level 13 all have amazing talents for his W build. So level 1, you see that he's picking up Backlash. When it expires, nearby enemies take 12% of their max health. 12% of max health is an insane amount of damage, especially against a tank like a Diablo or what's his name? Garrosh. Sorry, a little early. But, so it's pretty strong. Then, so you see he's focusing mainly on wave clear in the early game. Remember how I said his main tank is kind of weak in the early game, but he still has what Xul does best, which is wave clear. And he can wave clear so well that his team's able to just do camps, and they don't need to take any major fight. Level 4, level 7, level 13, he gets these W talents. One of them, each enemy hit, this is not heroes, this is any enemies, reduces the cooldown of your cursed strikes by 12 seconds, up to 12 seconds. So with this lasting 4 seconds, that means by the end of your 4 seconds, if you hit enough targets with it, it'll immediately be up, which is a 100% uptime on cursed strikes. Level 7, cursed strikes heal you for 70% of the damage dealt. This is when you can actually main tank with them, because then you're healing for a huge amount of damage, assuming that the enemies are even relatively frontline. Say, for instance, a Malthael and a Diablo is enough frontline to really deal with it. The other reason why Octalysis gets away with this is they play him on maps where the team fights happen around minions. What maps are those? That's Towers of Doom. Sorry, not Towers of Doom. Tomb of the Spider Queen and Infernal Shrines. He's very, very common. They pick him every once in a while on Volskaya as well, and I think it's because sometimes there's items that spawn or there are just a lot of people clustered. But in general, they pick him into maps where there's a lot of minions around. Or you can just get a lot of value off of going lane to lane and soaking back and forth. The downside to playing main tank Xul is that you have a weakness. You have two major weaknesses. One, you don't have the health pool of most main tanks, meaning that while your sustain at level 7 is really good, you lack the survivability against burst damage. That's the first major problem. The next major problem you have is really low mobility, and you don't have any like guaranteed engage. Your main engage is just a root. But the problem with the root is it doesn't really bring in too much. It's just you root one person, that person gets cleansed, no big deal. So those are your two major issues. So if you can find another person on your team who can give mobility or can give an engage, like a Deckard, then you're fine. Or the mobility from a Tyrande, then you're good. The next major problem with him is the burst, which we talked about already. How do you survive burst damage? Well, that's where your Rel's armor comes in, as well as Tyrande's spell armor, allowing him to survive a huge chunk of damage in team fights because he gains so much armor from his team that his relatively small health pool is not a concern. You see how he's able to just keep double soaking very easily against this team while his team quickly wins the objective. And he's just waiting for level 7 before they try to take a team fight. So let's tear apart how these team fights go and explain why this is such a powerful tool when we get into team fights. So we see how he's already healing a decent amount. He's already lowered the cooldown of his Cursed Strikes quite a bit. The Punisher's almost dead, so they don't really want to take a fight. We're going to fast forward until we see a fight. As he's still playing pretty much Specialist Xul up until these fights happen. But level 7 is when he can really take a fight. It's going to be pretty powerful. Most likely it'll happen at the next objective. In general, it's an interesting build. And again, it's why I didn't really want to do a whole why the pros play on him, is because he's only really being played by one team at the moment, and that's Octalysis. And it's working for him. It really is. So level 10, he picks up Skeletal Mages. That gives him an engage. He can root one person, Skeletal Mage their entire team, and they just get really slow. Allows his team to just walk right in. He stays near the minions just so things spawn. He doesn't really want to waste a W unless his whole the whole wave's there, so he can get his W back. This is the other thing that I really like about him as a tank, is he's one of the only tanks that can do camps reasonably quick. I would say him and Blaze are the only main tanks now, and I say Blaze as a main tank cautiously, because after the changes, a lot of main tank players have been playing him. That doesn't necessarily mean that he is a main tank yet, but I personally feel like he is. You can see his W's already at back off cooldown, so he can have 100% uptime on his W. So he goes in the back line, does a nice slow with his Skeletal Mages, and you can see he's just getting right in there with his W. See how much healing he's doing for himself at the moment? He's healed himself for 71, 119, and 89. And his W's off cooldown again, so he just W's once again. He's healing himself for 119, 119. 169, 119, 119. Once again, like, it's huge amounts of healing. He's pretty much full health out of the amount of healing that he's doing. And he's got 100% uptime on Cursed Strikes because he's hitting so many targets. If you hit 4 people with each of those, I mean, you only need to hit 3 with each swing, and you'll be able to have 100% uptime. But he's hitting so many with the first swing that he doesn't need to just sit there. He can get in and out of fights really quickly and be constantly getting value out of it. He doesn't waste his W. This is another thing that if you want to start doing this with your groups, I wouldn't do this into solo queue yet, because honestly, you do need this extra armor. You can see how they're jumping on him right away. With that extra 35 armor, he survives the burst, and then he survives the ult from Tracer. And now, guess what's going to happen? He's going to use his W, and he's going to out-heal the amount of damage that's being dealt to him. That is why he's so powerful. He has a team that's enabling this. You can't just do this on your own and make it work. He has an actual team that's always enabling him to do this. But because of this team, it becomes one of the stronger things that you can do. Now he's out of mana, so he can't do anything more here. He's probably, their whole team might actually get wiped here, to be honest. They're trying to get the rest of the objective, but he doesn't have a fountain. He used all of his mana. It's kind of the downside about having the W build is you do have mana problems, because your W takes 60 mana and you have pretty much no cooldown on it. So you're just using it off cooldown and it burns through your mana really quickly. So you're going to have to give up that one. He goes back to just double soaking. But yeah, if you happen to play this build, one of the things that I've noticed people make a mistake on is they'll Cursed Strike like a single target, and they won't be able to get their cooldown back fast enough. Oh, look at that healing. It's crazy. This is a good Q. He's too afraid to go in because no one's in the range to tank the structures. Oddly enough, main Tank Xul is not the greatest tank when you're just fighting structures, because he only heals 70% of the damage dealt to heroes, so he can't get the majority of his self-healing in there, and it's not really worth wasting all like the armor and spell armor and all that. I mean, spell armor does nothing to minions, but... Now, level 13 is when this really picks up. So you get this talent that says gain 5% attack speed for 3 seconds each time Cursed Strike hits an enemy. Once again, this is not enemy heroes. This is just enemies, which means that if you are fighting in the middle of a wave, one swing will give you like 50% attack speed, and your next swing caps you out at 75%. And if you're doing camps, you can see how quickly he's able to just melt down camps that have more than 2 targets. And you'll even be able to see this wave really quick, how he just goes boom, full attack speed, and he can just swing it down. It's a really, really strong tool, and it is extremely powerful. You can see he's gaining the attack speed even off of structures. So he becomes a siege monster. So now we've kind of figured out how they're making it work. So one, they're utilizing the strengths of Xul, which is being able to attack really fast, heal really fast, and have constant AoE damage. His two major weaknesses are burst, which they've answered by giving him armor with Yrel, as well as armor with Tyrande. If Yrel is banned, they go for Medivh. If Medivh is banned, they go for Yrel. If both are banned, they oftentimes won't run this composition unless they can sneak out maybe a white mane to give him the 40 armor from the ult from Scarlet Aegis, or still a Tyrande for the spell power, depending on the composition. Then the rest that he has is the problems with mobility, which Tyrande answers by giving him mobility here, or we have the Deckard who goes for the initiate using Sapphire and his combo, making it to where the major weaknesses that Xul has, they cover. And outside of that, they get to utilize his strengths of having a ton of healing, a ton of siege, and a ton of wave clear. Out of the tanks that we have, there are no tank that comes anywhere near his amount of wave clear, camp clear, or just pure siege. Level 16, we see the amplified damage, which is essentially it lowers the armor of whoever gets hit by his bone prism. Makes it really nice if the team picks one target that they want to blow up, particularly like a Phoenix if they could get the combo just perfectly, or even a Malthael. But Malthael does have Unstoppable, so it's going to be interesting for them to get this combo off on a good target. But in general, it's still really powerful. We see the objective that it's spawning. He was anchoring for a second, but anchoring's not one of the strengths of main Tank Xul. You can see he's even saving his W until stuff goes off. And then he goes in, he pops his W, his self-healing's going off, the armor goes off, he's able to survive just about everything. He gets in there once again, gets some damage off, wakes up a couple people. He's full health this entire fight. We see the Greymane immediately jumping in with Prismaticism, just dropping everyone. And you see, he didn't need to worry about anything. He took all the damage from the team, healed it back up, survived the burst because of the extra armor, and now his team's just going to go grab that while he just clears up stuff. Again, W, clears up all this, super attack speed, and he blows through it. Against teams that don't have a Diablo where he can just sit on him and auto attack, this is even scarier. Like, I think if you're with a team that's just doing Team League or something, I think that this would be one of the scariest things to run because it's so difficult to counter and it gets so scary, the amount of damage he's capable of if he's not CC'd. Now, in this case, he is being CC'd by the enemies, but if he wasn't CC'd, he would outdamage just about everyone on both teams. Just because that extra attack speed that he's getting and permanent uptime on it is insane. So they blow this up, and it looks like the objective is going to show up. It's going to drop down the... I'm surprised. Okay, there we go. I was like, I'm surprised they don't go for that keep. Now, they could blow up this camp if they want to very quickly. Once again, the Tron is going to do it slow, but when he walks up, he gets that attack speed going, and he's just going. That's it. It's that simple. Level 20 is going to be showing up soon, and at level 20, we see usually the reduced healing in the pro areas, but you don't need to pick that. It is just really nice, reducing healing by 75%, but they do have an emerald, so we may see a different ultimate picked up. But let's fast forward through a little bit. Again, just clearing camps up quick. They're going for a fight. Now, this is a tough fight for them to take because while they're clustered and this is a really good fight for Xul, they're not quite level 20 yet. So they're fighting in the best fight that Team Freedom has. Team Freedom has to win this fight or they lose the game. However, Octalysis could win this fight, or they could just wait and not take this fight, and then they'll win the game at level 20. So this is not a great fight for him, but even though it's not a great fight, you can watch how he probably will get out the skeleton mages first, and then he's going to gain all of his life back. He's pretty much half health. I mean, a little bit. He's not quite half health, but he's down quite a bit. And then you can see he pops the W, and he's healing, and a little low, but gets healed up. Again, this is not a great fight for him. We see him use his E off onto the white main. Now she has the reduced armor. He's getting the extra damage. The root lands off, and he can go for the Phoenix as well, and that should be game right there. They should just be able to push bot. He can land an E, but it's not going to do anything because she's just going to recall it. They go, and what does he pick up at level 20? He might just pick up this now that, yeah. Attacks reduce heroic cooldown. Interesting. Skeleton warrior attacks. I don't know if he picked that just because he thought that they were going to win before there was a fight, or because they already had the emerald. I don't know. Either way, so that is what Team Octalysis is doing and how they're winning with main Tank Xul. So thank you all for watching. Feel free to check out any of my other videos.